structure we're going to be looking at is the objects. These things exist in brackets. So an object, you're going to open and close brackets. And objects are formatted in key values. Boxes. You can kind of think of this entire object as one large box, or maybe even a drawer, like a large chest or drawer. And every time you open up one of those drawers, you're calling its key. And what's inside that drawer is a value. So for example, here we have this key name. So if I were to call name, then I'd receive back Jane Doe because that's a value assigned to it. The same thing for this. In JavaScript, you can actually have these key value pairs. It's pretty much anything you want here, any type of variable you want. So here we have this name, which is a string, but we can also have the number 1 as a key, which is an integer. The same thing here. This is just a string without any quotations around it. And we actually can assign that string to a double, so you can kind of mix and match these. But pretty much the same principle is going to continue to apply. We have this integer mapped to a student ID string, and we have this GPA that's just mapped to the double 4.0. And sorry, 1 second. Okay. We also have this one last one, which is going to be a string called classes, which is actually mapped to another nested object, where we're going to have more key value pairs that we can access by going inside this key. So here we have this classes string that's going to be mapped to this object, in which you have another 2 strings mapped to another 2 strings. In this case, just some base classes. So BSC 1010, which is just going to be mapped to the string biology 1, or COP 2210, which is just going to be mapped to the string programming 1. So if we want to access these, then for these outer ones, we can just call, for example, name and get back Jane Doe in that object. Or if we wanted to access these nested ones, then we can first call classes to get to the classes object and have that return to us. And then maybe we'll call, for example, BSC 1010 to get back the string biology 1. So these are kind of like nested. You can probably think nested arrays if that kind of helps you there. But that's the general gist of how an object is organized. If you've used Java hash maps before, this is generally the same concept, except you can mix and match what the variable types are. And this is the other data structure we're going to be covering today, arrays. You've probably seen these a lot in your programming 1 class if you've taken it. If you have not, then arrays in general are just going to be long lists of items. In Java, you'll probably know that arrays have to be that one specific type you declare them as. In JavaScript, you don't have that restriction. So for example, at the top, we have this, that first array of just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. The second is just going to be an array of strings, instead A, B, C, and D. And then we have our mixed array there, where we have 1 as our first entry, which is just an integer. 2 is going to be the string hello. 3 is going to be another nested array, so you can call this a 2D array if you'd like to, and it's just going to have 5, 6, and 7 in it. And then the last one is just going to be a string called end, and this is totally valid again. And one common way you're going to be seeing these arrays used in JavaScript is to hold nested objects. We actually do that in our projects.js file, so if you look into it, it's probably going to look something like this, where we open that array and close it at the bottom. And each of these array indexes, like each element in that array, is going to be a project with project object with some key value pairs in it. In this case, in this example, you have at index 0, since arrays are 0 indexed, this project object where we have this key, which is project name, which is going to map to Spotify Data Visualizer. And then we're going to have a second key, which is repository link, that just maps to some GitHub link. We have a comma to indicate that this is the end of this index. And then we have another object right under that, which just has the same key value pairs in it, which is just another project name, in this case like a to-do list tracker project. And then the repository link once again, which is another GitHub link, but like GitHub 2. Super common thing in JavaScript, especially if you're using lots of APIs. Okay, to the code.
Let's go. All right, fun part. So, right right? We have our project.js. We're not going into that. I want to make sure you guys go into the script.js, right? So we're going to be changing the script. I want to highlight that so no one's touching this. These are files that we're going to be using like images for our project. So we're going to go into your script.js. Right? First thing we're going to do is we need to import the info. So we're going to do that. Right? Because we're going to be editing. I'm going to see if it's deployed actually. Yeah. So we have this, right? We have our content, we have our skills, we have our projects, right? But when we click on them, nothing happens, right? If you click the back button, the next button, the link, nothing's really going to happen, right? Why is that? Well, because we haven't added any actions to it yet. So what we're going to be doing first is the project one. So we're going to go back to our code, go into the script. We're going to import these projects into our script so we can make edits to them properly. So you're going to do import, you're going to do curly brackets, and you're going to do projects. Oops, I hit nums lock. Big finger. Project info. And you're going to import it from your project.js file, which is this file. So we're importing from this file into this file so we can make edits. So we're going to do // projects. Right, and it's going to be .js. So it should look like something like this. Right. Import. Yeah. Awesome. When we import it, now we can make edits to it, right? So we're going to edit, right? We got to edit the back, the next, the projects, as well as the links as well. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a const, right? Because we don't want someone making changes, because we're not going to be changing or editing much of the arrows, right? Other than the functionality within it. So we're going to be using const variables for this. So we're going to have one that's going to be const next, right? And we're going to be getting the ID, right? Because if we go back to the styles, or styles, and if you guys remember, we actually did something different, or if you looked at the file, where is it? This projects.
Yes, down. Way lower. Or after skills, yeah.
Oh, sweet. So we have projects, project card, right? And these are classes, right? So there's nothing that's being edited that we're doing right now except for this one, right? This one has a hashtag. Why is that? Well, that's because it's an ID. Why we did that is because when we go into the script and we make the editings of the actions, we're only editing one element, right? So we don't need a whole class of backs and necks. We only need one, so that's why we use the hashtag for the element. And if we go back to here, and we go back to our projects, you'll see that instead of naming a class, we actually just give it an ID name, right? So going back to HTML, why we use ID elements versus class elements, in our CSS style, when we're styling different things, when we want to style one thing versus styling everything, right? So it's just syntax and proper development practices. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to do document dot get element by ID. ID. We're going to do next. Right. So why are we doing this, right? So first, right, it's the document. So we're grabbing the document, and then we're doing the get element by ID with that dot operator, right? It's kind of like when you have a Java function, and where you have a function within a document, and you're trying to get it, right? Like get width, get length of a car object, right? So we're going into the document object, and we're getting the element by the ID, and we're looking for the name next. And if we go back to the index, right? Go back to the index, right? We're grabbing, where is it? This one, right here, ID next. So that's why, again, syntax and typing is very important, right? So when you go in and you're looking for that get element by ID, you're actually getting the one that's called next. And it's important that you also make sure you name it correctly, right? Because if you did like get class by ID and you went back into the index, it's not going to work. So make sure you name it correctly. Next, we're going to get another element, right? Because we can't just get the next one. What if we want to go back? So we got to do the back one as well. So we're going to do the same thing, right? But we're going to name it back equals document, right? And then get element by ID, and then we're going to call it, and we're going to look for back, right? Then we're going to do another one. We're going to do projects equals document dot get element by ID, and this one's going to be called projects. Oh, that's syntax. Here we go. Awesome. Oh, thanks. sure you get the S in there as well. It's projects. Const, and then we're gonna get one more. This is the form. It's the FAQ.
No, there's the forms. I took the form out, sorry.
Oh, so we don't need.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay, so never mind. We only need the background projects. We're gonna do a const gap, right? 30. And right now we're just declaring our variable. So then we're gonna do a width equals project dot offset width. Did I do that right? Yeah, no, I did project info.
No, my keyboard loves doing that, I'm sorry.
Okay. Projects constant width projects dot offset width. Okay, sweet. So yeah, these are all the variables. Most of them. Yeah.
When was the last time you pulled the code?
Okay. You plugins? Okay. Alright. Next we're gonna do, now we're gonna add an event listener called DOM content loader. What this is an event for the document to make sure that all of our content's loaded before any actions are taking place. It just makes the run of the website more efficient. We do documents. Add listener. We're going to do DOM content loaded. Tab is going to be your best friend when filling out this content. Right, so we're going to do, oh, mine's crossed out. That's weird.
I think that's normal because you need a callback function, it's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine after you do the callback function.
Awesome. And you're going to do curly bracket, you hit enter, you should have parentheses and a curly bracket. And we're going to go in here. We're going to do project info. We're going to do a for each, right? So this is a for each method. We're going to do projects. We'll do an arrow function. Ooh. So this is pretty much telling it for each object in the array. We're doing const container. No, not container. Container. It's going to equal document. We're going to create an element. We're making a new div. New div container for the project. Document. Create elements. And we're making a div. Awesome. And then we're going to do container. Class list. And then we're going to add. And I'm going to stop after this one, just give people time to catch up and explain what I just did. Awesome. So right now, we just did a for each method, and that means for each object in this project, we're going to be creating a div and a project card so far. So as you can see, we're doing constants. We're not doing let, right? Because we don't want people. We're not making any edits to the divs that we're making, and then we're also adding these cards to the container. So, I'm going to take a minute so we can see what it is, catch up, and go to the next part. Awesome. That we're going to the next part. You're going to hit enter. And then we're going to add the title. So we're going to do title. We're going to document. Create element. It's going to be H. We're going to do title inner text equals project dot project name. We're going to do title class list. And it's going to be project title. No, it's exact. Boop. So this is the title. Now we're creating an H3 document, and we're adding the inner text of it to be project name, and then we're adding it to the class list. Yeah.
Okay, so we've written 2 of these blocks of code so far. Does anybody know where we might be going with this and how we might proceed? You don't need to necessarily give us straight up code. You can just describe what you might do next in this approach, or just what we're doing in general.
Hint, it's something we mentioned about the content loading.
Any takers? Yes?
Yes, you in the back.
Loading cars, just create elements of the HTML content.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly, yeah, that's it. Let me show them the site. There was a fair number of silent responses. So from last time, you might remember at the very end, we did make one of these default cards so far, and that's kind of what we're doing right here, except we're going to be iterating through that entire list of projects that we showed you guys earlier in your projects.js file, and we're going to be making these project cards and loading them onto the DOM through JavaScript. So that's why that project section you have probably only has 1 card in it, or we left it blank if you weren't here last time. So that's why we're making the first thing. Sorry, that's what we're making at. Goodness. Okay. The first thing we're going to be making is that div to actually contain this card, and we gave it that project card class to give it that styling. And then after that, what we're going to make next is the image title, which we just made. We're going to also make the paragraph. We're going to give it the styling, and we're going to make the link, and also give it the styling all through JavaScript. So that's kind of what you're seeing with that loop right there, where we make an element using the document object model. We give it a class, and soon we're going to actually append them. Soon we're going to append them to that div. But yeah, that's generally the loop there. We make an object, we give it its stylings through the classes, we change its inner text if necessary, or any other attributes that are relevant. And once we finish that, we're going to append it to that larger div. So that's kind of what we're doing there in that for each loop, just to clarify and reiterate.
Awesome, awesome. So we just did the project title, right? Now we're going to add the images. So we're going to do constant image. Document. Create element. Right. We're going to do image. That. This one's going to be img. C. And that's just source code equals project.
And also, just to reiterate, since all these attributes are coming straight from that project's info section that we imported earlier, you can kind of see here, this is where we're actually going in and accessing all those attributes that we gave to those objects. So these are like object attributes.
Next, we're going to be doing the description. And now we're loading in the GitHub link. Documents. GitHub link. href. Project. GitHub link. Alright, here, text. Equals. Project. Description. ds dot process dot add dot project.
I know your ass did not fill out my survey.
Oh, my bad, it's not text, it's like, I got the wrong thing.
Yeah, and then it's like product description is actually just like the string. I can see I had the same issue. I had the same issue last workshop.
When it all looks the same, you're like, zoning out. Okay, so it's. The only thing I'm worried about in the last couple of days, I should say, like, they kind of stop paying attention. It's not like, it's okay if we wait till after. Okay. Yeah, let's get through the JavaScript and then say we do that and then do the point because the point's like super easy.
That's
Back
good.
to- Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. So we just added the GitHub link. Double check and make sure it's right. Okay. Awesome. And then we're gonna do the adding of it. So we still gotta append it. So if you guys remember from like data structures, or if anyone has anyone here taken data structures? Okay, so you guys know like lists and everything and like appending and adding. So that's what we're pretty much doing. We're adding it to the container. So now we're gonna be appending all the content that we just created and loaded from the project.js. So it's gonna be container.append image. And then I'm just gonna kind of just copy, 'cause it's the same thing. Oops. Because we need 4, and then I'm just gonna rename them the title, the description, and the GitHub link. So I'll do the title. One's the DSC, and then one's the GitHub link. Well, something like that. And then one more, actually. We have to actually append it to the projects. So projects dot append. Awesome. Sweet. So we just loaded all the content. Yeah. So, right, we added the content for each content that we're having, right? We're gonna add the div, the project card, the title, the image, the text that comes with it, as well as the link, and then we're appending it to the container, and then we're appending what we added to the container to the project to ensure that, as we're going through and clicking the buttons and stuff and adding all the projects, we don't have to worry about manually adding all the projects. If we have other projects we want to add, can you go to the project.js really quick? The cool thing about the for each, right, is if you have another project that you want to add, you create another object like Rosalind talked about, and you can just keep adding it, right? So that's a really cool thing about using these for loops is you don't have to manually add them, right, each and every time. You kind of have to for these for each, but it's a lot easier and it's a lot more readable this way. Yes?
So essentially the majority of the code is just calling original information that's already there instead of creating it again?
Pretty much, yeah. So we're pretty much taking our projects and we're organizing it on the actual projects, and then we're taking from the script, we're importing those projects into it, and then we're able to call on it. So, yeah, great question, Bo. Yep.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Is there anything you'd like to know how to do if you want to try to alter this?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have the projects
Oh, you don't have the projects.js file?
Okay, I can add that.
I should show them how to find an explorer.
Yeah. Let me double check to see if it's there.
in the starter code? No, it's not there. It's gonna.
Okay.
Oh, I can add it to the Explore Hub.
I can do that right now.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna add it to the Explore Hub. So once it gets uploaded, you can just copy paste it and put it into a file called projects.js. Cool. And back to these JS. You good if you continue? You don't need anything? You good if you continue?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So through this, what we've just essentially done is created all those project cards and appended them to our project container. So if you were to check back on your file and you were to have you were to load the page, then once that page loads, because of that DOM content loaded event listener, then all of your project files will be loaded into those cards as well. So next thing we want to do, of course, is first check this. So we have the personal portfolio. Gonna reload that page, and nothing there. Hold on, cannot scroll. Let me just double. Error. Project citation not found.
Syntax error in personal project.
Syntax error.
Does it might be the importing wrong?
Projects. Should we call project info? Projects info. Okay, we forgot this. Projects. Projects info. And for it does not function, this probably is capital. And double check. There we go. Okay. Am I tripping? Hold on. Hold on. Some syntax issues. Make sure at the very top we forgot the S at the project's info in your import statement. So make sure it's projects info, not project info. Because in our actual projects.js file, the actual constant object that you're returning is projects info. So those two have to match across the files.
And the for each.
Yeah, the for each is if you have a lowercase e there, it's supposed to be a capital E. That's the name of the function. And let me just double check these. That's image, project text, project link. Oh, because this is okay. Add project link. And there we go. Okay. And oh shoot, how did I notice that? And also one last little syntax error there. I think the autocorrect accidentally changed this last line from from GitHub link to description. So this just has to be a big GitHub link because we want to add that project link class to our GitHub link. We just need to change. We need to make sure the styles are correct in that case.
That was a trick.
Hmm?
That was a trick. We're supposed to come out.
Dang, I didn't even see that. I was standing right next to him. Okay. Everybody got those errors fixed? Is anybody still getting an error on their page if they were? Yeah?
Can anyone not scroll?
No, it shouldn't work. Can you scroll? No, you're good. You're good. No, yeah, it just has to scroll. It doesn't have to click or anything yet. We haven't implemented that. Anybody else? Everything good? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go back. Anybody else? Or are we all good? Yeah, okay.
shoot, do you have multiple in your payment? No, it is. Sometimes it depends.
I mean, I'll have this thing anywhere. Maybe separate or projects. That's just okay.
Oh, we put the CSS in H. We put HTML and CSS files in the Explorer. So you've got
From my final degree of mine, I'm trying to use some semester. Because I can server versus like trying it's also easier to just navigate to what you can want now and just go along with what you want.
Yeah, yeah, because of the new CSS now, and also these days. You guys have that sound, is it and then just put that CSS there, and then we have exchange.
Is there anybody? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's projects.
Under the code section of the HTML CSS, you
Is there anybody else who needs any help, questions, comments, and concerns otherwise?
Oh, that's
So it just displays this, and then here, are we supposed to add more here? Is it just
No,
one?
no, no, that was the one that you have there is just the card that we did just to visualize the styling during the CSS workshop. We kind of ran out of time, so it became a bit redundant, but by the end of this section, we're going to delete that, and it should be empty. Yeah, you can still get that. It's just the, yeah, up to where it says, intentionality, so up to line 30. You can delete the comments, it's totally fine. But yeah, once you refresh, then it's just going to be what's been loaded dynamically with HTML. But errors aren't going to work yet. Okay, start up in like hopefully 2 minutes. But yeah.
And then we would just replace everything that for the projects like here.
Yeah. And the project.js file, that's where you're going to be putting in your project information.
So this is basically a data structure that is holding, that displays everything, and this holds the information that we are inserting.
Yes. Yeah, your project.js file is going to be that array that I was talking about with those nested objects. Yeah, you can see like the start and end of the array there, like those yellow brackets. That's the start and end of your array. And within that array, each of those indexes are going to be holding those project objects. You can see they're denoted with those brackets right there.
And then we display like all the users.
Yeah, we call that for each function. So you take that array, and for each item in that array, you're going to take it as a project. You're going to take all the information in it, make a div, an h3, an image, a p, and an a type for the link. And you're going to add all those stylings, and wherever you need to change the text. For example, for your image, you can put the image link. For your description, you're going to be able to put the description text there, and it's going to
And these have to match.
yeah, those parameters do have to match the names there because those are going to be your object keys. And to access the value that's in that key, then you go back. Then you have to call it by its key.
And then in the HTML, you have to put these are the classes, right?
Yeah, those are the classes. Those are the styles. So they're going to be in your style CSS. Yes.
Any other questions? Anybody else having any errors? Do not, or anybody who does not see what's on the screen or cannot scroll through the project section?
I don't know. I just have a question. Yeah.
Is it a short question or? Okay.
No, literally.
There you go.
Oh, no, I get it. I wanted to ask why, but it's because,
Yeah, one of them is on the HTML. I just did that for an example last time, so you can visualize the styles we were doing, but you can delete what's in the HTML.
no, I get it, but like,
Everybody else here? Any questions otherwise? Any curiosities about what's going on in the code? If you want to expand it, maybe you want to add like another description? Anybody else need anything? Sorry. Okay, I think the most of you are here. Is there anybody else who might not be seeing what I'm seeing here? Cannot scroll through their project section or otherwise?
Did you pull the CSS from that?
Okay, I think we're good.
The rest of the styling is on the
So, as a lot of you might have noticed by now, if I go back to the personal portfolio, we can scroll through our projects now, and they are being loaded onto the DOM, but we can't actually use our arrows just yet. And the whole point of the carousel is to use those arrows. So we're going to be able to use event listeners to actually add functionality to those arrows. So I'm going to head back to my script.js file. And if you recall from earlier, we did already select those arrows at the top of the project. So we have our next and back arrows loaded into our memory already. So we can actually use our variables to actually scroll through automatically. So I'm going to first take the next arrow, and I'm going to use the dot operator to access its methods. And the specific method I want to call on it is to add an event listener. So I'll call next.addEventListener. The specific event that we want to look for is when somebody clicks on the arrow. So the first parameter that event listeners need is just the type of event you're looking for. In this case, click. And the second thing we're going to pass in is what happens when we click on that arrow. In this particular case, we want to take that event that we just received from that click and give it a callback function. So here we have that click as the first parameter, and we're saying to add an event listener to that when somebody clicks on this, we take that event and we do this code within the curly braces. So specifically what we want to do is that we want to scroll left and right from project to project within our container. So since we have the project container already loaded in memory, we're going to access it because that's the specific window that we want to scroll through. So we're going to call projects.scrollBy. And this scrollBy function has two parameters, scrolling horizontally and scrolling vertically. In this case, our carousel is horizontal, so we want to scroll left and right instead of up and down. And we want to scroll by the width that we just acquired from our from our text constants right up there. That's the width here specifically is the projects.offset width, which is just going to be the size of our container for that specific project's elements, plus any border or padding that we added. So we're going to scroll by the width plus the gap between our flex boxes that we define in our CSS. And if you guys remember that what I mentioned, I did say this has two parameters. The first one we just put in is left and right scrolling. The other one is up and down scrolling, and we don't want to scroll up and down at all. So we're just going to put in a 0 for that. We're going to do the same thing for the back arrow. So we're going to do back dot add event listener to add an event listener to this back arrow. And we're going to do this again for the click events. And I'm going to hope the documentation gets on my face. And we're going to put another callback function for when that event is detected. So given what we did for that next scroll button to scroll forward to the next project, does anybody know what we would do to scroll backwards to the previous project? Intuition, pseudocode, anything, just an approach? Mm-hmm.
Would you get width then subtracted by itself twice?
You're on the right path, yes. Not twice. We just subtract it. We just subtract width plus gap. So we're going to be scrolling in the negative direction. So as you mentioned, we'll be taking that project's object, and we're going to scroll by a negative width plus gap. And of course, we're not scrolling vertically at all, so we're going to pass in 0 for that. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to catch up, and I wish this was not cut off. I think that helps. Did we get everybody? Was everybody good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly like downloading live server like Facebook thinking she's. What do you mean you go through your whole project and try to find your project? Just get live server. Oh, sorry. I was just saying that. That's nice.
Everybody good? Questions, comments, concerns? So, if I load back the website, open and split screen for anybody who wasn't able to get all the code yet. If we now click on our projects, it's like freezing on me, okay. And we click on the next button, it does move left and right. If I were to actually put this in full screen mode, it does move by the exact width of the project, exactly as we expected. But when I actually resize this page, then it scrolls too much. Does anybody know why that might be? Because that's the last thing we gotta fix for this entire carousel section to be completed. Okay, so now that we have our arrow event listeners done, and we actually try to scroll left and right, it does work when we're in full screen and we have the full image, we have the full size of the card. But if I resize it, then it actually scrolls too much. You can see that it scrolls the length of 2 cards there on a smaller screen only. And I was wondering, does anybody know why that's happening? Guesses are fine. There's not necessarily any wrong answer.
We're not taking into account the different window sizes.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you check at the top, we only ever take our offset width once when this JavaScript file is first loaded, and we never check it again, meaning that's if we have it loaded on full screen, then we're going to take those full 600 pixels, and then we never change it. So when you put resize the screen, it doesn't reload, it doesn't change the JavaScript, so width never changes. So what we'd have to do then is go to this constant width, and we have to be able to change it first. So we have to redefine it as a let variable, so we can actually change from whenever we resize. So we're going to let width equal project.offset width instead of as a constant variable. And then down here in the event listener, every time we click on this on either the next or back arrows, we want to reassign the width to whatever the width currently is for that project section. So that's going to be simple. We'll just have a small reassignment statement there. So width equals projects.offset width. And we're going to do that in both the front and back event listeners. So now, instead of just calculating our width one time and then just assuming that's going to work no matter what, we recalculate it every time we click on those arrows just to make sure that it's going to always scroll by only the length of one project. I'll leave that up there for another minute or so. And of course, in the meanwhile, does anybody have any questions? Anything that they don't quite understand? Anything they want elaborated on? So if I were to go back and actually refresh this page, now I should be able to scroll by the exact length of this project card. And if I were to resize it, then it still updates as normal. So that's the carousel section pretty much done. Is anybody not able to scroll through their carousel section, or they're okay, yep.
What do you want, the cursor to change or the hover?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so you set the cursor to.
Any other questions? Anybody's code not working? Am I broken?
No, just asking about the cursor. That's cool. You're in the build. Oh, yeah. Hmm? Yeah. Is it what you think?
Everybody else all good?
It's funny you guys got most of it done out here.
Yeah, we got like some of it done. We have like 2 weeks left.
You guys are chilling about that.
Yes. I mean, I was working on movement. It was just a bunch of YouTube and you know.
Those are definitely. I really able to really teach myself like node. There's like node mailing that I know I do. I was like all I had to do was a config page, but like setting it up is actually a lot more.
So now our carousel section is complete, but we also have the inquiries and information section, which is supposed to function as an accordion, where if you open up one of these, then it should show you more information inside of the menu. But currently that doesn't work for ours because the max height is set to 0 in our CSS. So everything inside of each of these menu tabs is currently being hidden, and we need to use JavaScript to unhide it. So the general approach we're going to be going for this section is that when we click on one of these titles, then its content should be revealed. And if we click on another one, then a different one should open up and the other one should close. If we click on the same open one again, then all should close. So we can implement that pretty similarly to what we did earlier. I'm going to head back to my script.js file. And first we're going to need to select all the elements that are involved in that function. So first, I'm going to make a constant called drawer items. And I will take the document object and select all of the HTML elements with the .info wrapper class. I spelled that wrong? I'm going to split screen the index HTML so you guys can kind of see what I'm trying to select here. But if I go down to the info section container where we're working, you can see that each of these little drawers has that info wrapper attached to it. That's going to be the outer div for any of these. And we want to be able to select all of them. So we query selector all of our elements with that info wrapper class. So we have all of them loaded into our memory, so we can add an event listener to them. The other element that I need to select is going to be the drawer answers. So I'll make another constant and call it drawer answers. And I'm going to go into the document object again and query selector all of those dot answers. So here you can see these 3 divs with the .answer class. That's 1, 2, and then there's like 3 at the very bottom. And we're going to select all 3 of them and put them into this variable drawer answers. So since we want to be able to give each of these drawer items that functionality, we're going to have to go through each of these and give them all an event listener. Meaning that we're going to take drawer items and call for each to iterate through all 3 of them. And we're going to take each of them as an item, and we're just going to call it item. And the functionality we're going to be implementing with that item, have a div with a class question and one with a class answer. We're going to need to manipulate both of those. When you click on that question, it should open the answer. So we need to select both. So we're going to take a const, and we're going to call it question, and we're going to set it equal to item dot query selector question. And what that's going to do is to go into each of those drawer items, aka these these divs of info wrapper classes, and it's going to find the child's div inside of it with the question class. We're also going to do the same thing with the answer. We're going to do const answer equals item dot query selector for that answer, dot answer. Since we're using more generic query selectors, you do have to make sure to put those dots because that means class. All the interactivity pretty much happens when we click on that question. So the next thing we're going to do is to add an event listener to the question. Add event listener. We're going to listen for when we click on an answer tab, and we're going to execute this function that we're passing in afterwards. I'll let you guys catch up. But just to reiterate again, we're selecting these drawer items. So we're selecting all 3 of our menus, and we're also selecting all the answers within them. And for each of those drawer items, we're going to be selecting its question and its answer. And for the question, since we want the drawers to either open or close when we interact with the question, we're going to add an event listener to it specifically for when we click on it. I'll give you guys, a good 2 minutes to catch up. Does anybody have any questions in the meanwhile, or are we good to go? Anybody still need to see the code? Okay. So for each of these questions, we want to first check if we need to open it or close it. So we'll take a variable and save whether or not it's currently open. So I'm going to declare a variable called open and let it equal the answer, check its class list, and see if it contains open in it. this probably looks a little archaic because I did not go through the CSS sheet just yet. But within the CSS, there is a class called open that changes the max height of these answers from 0 to fit the contents, meaning that essentially when you apply that open class to any of these answers, they'll show up instead of being hidden. So what we're going to do first is to check if the answer has that class in it. Because if it does, then that means it is currently open. And if it isn't open, then that means we want to open it because we clicked on it and that's the expectation. So if it's not open, then we'll take the answer, and in its class list, we are going to add the class open. And that should open our drawer. If it is open, nothing will happen. And there is one last thing that we do have to do here. This will open any drawer that we click on, but it never actually closes them. So we do have to add that as well. And that's why we selected the drawer answers. So in that variable above there called drawer answers, we have access to all of our answers on our HTML documents. So we're going to access it with drawer answers. And for each of those answer sections, those answer divs, then we're going to take it as a variable called answer, and we're going to remove the class open if it's there. So we'll do answer.classList to access its list of classes, and we're going to remove open. No, I just gotta double check it. Okay. Alright, that's the final. Yeah, there we go. So if you go back to your site, then if you could, if you were to click on any of these 3 tabs, the work and skills, the methods of contact, or just your fun facts section, then clicking on it once should open it. Clicking on it again should close it because you're going through and closing all of those and not opening what's already open. And of course, if we open one of these and we try to open another, then since all of those classes were closed before and we reopened just one, then you should never have 2 of these drawers open, which is our intended functionality. I can just full screen that. Is anybody not able to do any of that? Still need to see the code? Would like anything explained? Not sure about something?
Sweet.
All good. Okay, that's everything.
Awesome. All right, everyone clap up. Yay! We completed the first project. So if it works right, you can see, Rose, I can show really quickly, but that's pretty much the project. Next we're going to be going into deploying, completely optional, but we highly recommend it because it's going to take really quickly. We're going to use Netlify. It's a hosting server, so if you're going on LinkedIn, stuff like that. It's pretty cool, and it gives you, like, you can actually get the link. We're going to show you how to do it so that way you can just copy it and you can send it to friends and show it off. Or I'll even show you guys extra as well how to like buy domains and stuff, and then you can link that to your project. So people go to stuff like yourname.com, like the ones I showed in personal portfolios, your actual personal portfolio will show up. So, but before I dive into that, I want to give you an opportunity to get some pizza. So we did have food for you guys in the back. So when you guys have a moment, feel free to grab a slice. And yeah, and so as we're doing that, when you go on, yeah. Oh, you know? Okay, sweet. But yeah, so we're gonna take a little break so people can either catch up. Grab a piece of pizza and stuff, and I'm going to show you guys how to deploy and buy your domain and all that stuff. So it's not going to take too long, probably like 10 minutes.
For anybody who might have missed any of the code earlier, I'm going to split screen it so that you can see the bottom of the code on the right and the top of the code on the left.
Yeah. I don't mean to rush you guys. I'm going to write it for you guys, that way you guys have it too. So you guys remember? Who remembers how to push? Can anyone tell me the first thing? Anyone? The dot's there, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Oh, this is the markers.
But
there.
before you can push, what do you have to do? You have all those files that you made a bunch of changes to. What do you have to do to them?
You gotta make the box. You gotta add it to the box.
Gotta add it to the box.
Yep. So it's get. It's Holy Trinity. Get space add. Yep. And then no space and then period.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you guys are getting it. And let's commit.
Question, everybody got?
Yep,
Gosh.
seems like it. You can go ahead and grab for yourself, Creed.
And then the message goes in here.
I think everyone.
And then it's
Leave
get
it there,
push.
and then if they want. Well, chill, fatties. Relax. Let's
It's bulking season.
This is true, but how many people are actually bulking?
True.
Okay, in the meantime, before you guys run those commands really quick, I'm going to call out the names of people who attended all 3 workshops and who are going to be getting their pins today and then their certificates sometime later this week. So the first person is Valeria. Can you guys just come up to me while yeah, okay, perfect. Then Mariah, and then Mr. David, John, Denise, Emma. Yeah, you know, we should make new ones, but that you can collect them. Now you got 2 instead of 1. You want the document? Oh yeah, make sure you remove the film from them because I promise they're not that ugly. They just have a little blue film on them. Okay, so Belki, Perla, Renz, and Josue, you get one, but you need to fill out my exit survey. So I'll give you that to do. And then here, really quick? Do you want to do it here, or do you just rather I give you the QR code?
You guys get a moment? Can you scan the QR code?
Oh wait, that's a different QR code.
That's mine.
That's a different one. I'll do this one first and then
Oh,
you
my
can
bad.
do that.
No.
Okay, for clarity.
My
There's
bad.
only face license?
So this side.
No, but that's fine. No, I gave him that one. Everyone else should have the exit survey. But just clarify, this other QR code that he's about to give you is their own evaluation.
It's our own one, because we're going to be, if you guys are coming next semester, we love your guys' feedback so we can make sure the workshop that you guys are getting is stuff that you actually want to learn. So when you guys get a moment, make sure to scan the QR code. It does input, does value. So the reason why we did the personal portfolio in this cohort is because people did respond, and the personal portfolio was the one that had the most votes. So by telling us what you guys want to see, like cohort-wise, maybe you guys want to learn a new language, how to deploy again, or anything you guys want to learn that's in the web dev space, we're happy to make workshops for you guys, but we want to get your input first. So when you guys get a chance to, make sure to scan the QR code. It's also on the Explore Hub as well. Read feedback. And it's anonymous, so there's no pressure. All right, now for the fun part. Keep saying that. So this is actually my favorite part. This part is pretty self-explanatory. I want you guys, when you guys get a moment, finish eating, take your time. I'm just going to walk you guys through this process. I want you guys to go to netlify.com. What this is a hosting website, right? So we have all these amazing projects. How do we show them off to people, right? We're not going to just send them our GitHub link because some people are not technical and they don't know how to work the files and they don't have live server, etc. They don't want to download all that stuff onto their own phone or whatever they're using. So how do we do that? Well, this is what Netlify is for. Now there's other hosting sites like Hostinger, Vercel. For this workshop, we're going to be using Netlify. I like using Netlify because it's simple and simplistic, right? So you're going to come to Netlify. You're going to sign up or log in. Do you have a login? You do? Okay.
GitHub.
Yeah, so you're going to log in with GitHub. So you're going to go into the login page, hit login with GitHub. And then once you do that, you should come onto this side. This is like your dashboard, similar to GitHub, right? This is where you're going to find your domains, your build, your site, etc. Right? I really like the domains. My favorite pastime is really buying domains, right? So, but I can walk you guys through that afterwards if you guys want to. But make sure that when you do buy domains, though, that you buy it through a provider that you use frequently. Because when you do buy a domain, it lasts for about a year most of the time. You can buy more or renew it. But when you buy it, make sure it's through a provider that you like to use. Because, for example, if you buy one domain through Hostinger, to use it, that exact domain on Netlify or deploy through another hosting website, you have to go through a process of moving out the DNS records onto the new hosting site, which can be a pain in the butt because Hosting, for example, has can sometimes not work as efficient with Netlify. So I highly recommend when you do buy domains, use a platform that's easy for you to use, experiment, but make sure you're buying it that you want to use it for, right? So I'm not going to show on this one on how to do it, on how to go through the whole process, but for example, you buy the domain, right? You would do this is her project, you do Rosaline, DMA, right, .com. You would check to see if it's available, which it is. You would choose it, right? And the first year is $15, renewal is $19, right? So if you do go through that process, that's how you buy your domain. Again, highly recommend, looks really cool, and you can show off it a lot easier. And I'll show why I wanted to show the domains first, right? Because for example, right, we want to deploy the project. We're gonna do deploy. So on the home page right here, you're gonna go to sites. You're gonna import your site from Git. You're gonna select GitHub. Once it's authorized, right? Now you have access to all your projects that you want to deploy, right? So we want to deploy the personal portfolio. This one, live. Awesome. So we're going to do the live one. It's going to be for the team. The site name, default URLs for your site. I think you could do. Yeah, okay, I remember now. Okay, so it's Rosaline. Okay. I'm going to just put Rosaline DAS, right? Just to signify personal portfolio. It says site names available, and you can notice this http.notified app is saying it's available, which is really cool, right? So when we go down here, you can skip all this other stuff, and you hit deploy. And pretty much right now, it's taking all the information from your GitHub, and it's throwing it onto Netlify's hosting platform to bring your broadcast it, right? So when we think of SoundCloud, right? You have music on your phone, you put it on the SoundCloud platform so other people listen to it. The same thing with websites, and you'll know it's in progress because right now it says site deploy in progress, and it takes usually 30 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on how much content you have. It's not a lot of content, so it shouldn't take too long. But what's really cool about it is once this is loaded, it will give us a link, and that link, and it just says deploy, right? So now we can see it, and now if we go to here, you can see the deploy summary, but there's one where it's a site overview, and you see how it says Rosaline now.netlab. When we click that, it shows our project. So that's really cool, right? Because now if you guys go on your own computers and you searched up this exact URL or domain name, her project would actually show for you guys. So I just want to show that really quickly for you guys who want to show off your projects to people. And I promise you, recruiters love to see public profiles because they're not technical, so when they see that you deployed something, that's something they look out for to show that you have a working project. It's a lot easier to show off to than just GitHub files. And when you have something like this that shell hacks, and you want to show it off to your friends or family, it's a really cool accessory that you can use in your personal career. So, yeah.
I think I didn't push the code. This automatically
Oh,
updates,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
And we're going to show something cool. So you notice how our code is broken and janky. What's cool about deploying, you don't have to have the latest updated code. It automatically pulls it from GitHub. So when we push this code, it's going to go to push to GitHub, and Netlify, which is constantly deploying, is going to pull the latest code from GitHub and deploy it on your website. So that's deploying. And there's different forms of deploying and hosting. You have cloudless or cloud hosting, which is what we're doing right now through Netlify. There's server hosting for bigger enterprises that may have security or confidential information. They're not going to want to just have their information floating up in the cloud that people can access. They're going to have it in actual servers. So there's different ways of doing it. You can do shared hosting, multiple versions you can do. Yeah.
Dang, I would not be surprised, low-key, if I accidentally gave you the wrong repository. No, there it is. Okay.
There it is. So, if you look up that domain name, you'll see her project. Is there any questions about deploying and hosting? No? Sweet. Thank you, guys. Woo. And we'll be around for a little bit in case you have any other questions about styling or anything like that.